This is episode 244 of the Beyond the Food Show, and today we're going to talk about what to do when you first stop dieting. Stay tuned. Welcome to the Going to Beyond the Food Show. I'm Stephanie Dozier, clinical nutritionist and emotional eating expert, creator of the Going to Beyond the Food method, and founder of the Going to Beyond the Food Academy. Corporate executive turned health expert with my own journey with weight, body image, and food. It's now my mission to help smart, successful women like you live confidently right now and unconditionally. Ready, sister? Let's do this. Welcome back in, sisters. Your host here is Stephanie, and I'm very excited about this episode. And let me give you a little bit of context as to where this come from. We have an online community. If you're not part of it yet, you're missing out because we share a lot of things. And our community is virtual, so our mean of communication is virtual, which at this point in time it's via email, right? That's the only way we can chat virtually. So when you join our community, you receive an email from us with a welcome package. And in that email, I ask the question, what is the one thing you're struggling with food the most? A small percentage of people actually reply to me. And this is where it gets interesting. When you do reply to me, my assistant sends me those emails, and once a week I go in and I answer as many as I can with giving you further resource with the thing you shared with me. And that process allows me to get a good understanding of you, the people in my community, the listener of the show, as to why you're here, what you struggle with, how does food show up in your life, how you need help, what you need help with, where you are in your journey. Are you at the beginning or you're at the end of your journey of ditching dieting? So it's a wealth of information for me and a magnificent opportunity to interact with you because, recording this podcast is pretty lonely. Like I'm looking at a computer screen right now. I have no idea who's on the other side listening to this podcast. And sometime I'll reply to those emails. And perhaps you're listening to this podcast episode because I replied to your email and I sent you here. And this is why I wanted to create this episode because a great percentage, I would say probably 70% of the people who join our community, who reply to my email, are at the very, very beginning of their journey of letting go of dieting, right? They're just getting this awakening that diet don't work, and they're coming to join us to help them doing something about it, but they don't know what. And we have to be conscious for all of us who have been, who have quit dieting years ago, or even just a year ago. For us, we have this world that's diet culture free, but the vast majority of women in this world, 98% of women, don't live in our world. Like we are very few here that are aware that diet don't work and that there's such a thing as diet culture, and that as women, we've been oppressed and forcing ourselves into a thinner body, and it's created all kinds of things in our life. Like that's a small percentage of us. Now, fast forward 10, 20 years on the road, that will be different, right? But right now, that's a very small percentage. So when we look at the vast majority of the other women, just look in your own life that are still in that mode of chasing a thinner body, they don't understand what they need to do. They're like, well, if diet doesn't work, then what? And that is what this episode answers. So it's going to be for the new people in my community, but it's going to be for all of you sisters who've done this journey either with me or someone else, and you're now diet free. This is the episode to send other people to help them understand what they need to do. And I want to make one thing clear. This episode will not serve as a tool to, quote, convince people that diet don't work. And I've been learning a lot recently from someone that I discovered. Her name is Sonia Renee Taylor, in my journey of being a better ally in the world of anti-racism. And she said something the other day in a video that really struck me. She said, I'm not here to convince people that we shouldn't be racist. I'm like, yeah, like I'm not here to convince you that diet don't work. Like I'm done with this. Because trying to convince women that diet don't work is a lost cause. This is something that needs to happen internally at the individual level when they're ready. So this episode is not to convince women that diet don't work. It's to help women who've had this realization and they're like, okay, now what? So to you, sister, who's coming here for the first time and you just had your awakening, welcome to our world. And I think this episode is going to give you exactly what you need to do next. So here's what we're going to talk about: what to expect when you stop dieting, the pendulum swing, and then just stick with me, you'll get to understand what that means in just a few minutes, investigating the damage caused by dieting, the process of unlearning dieting, and the journey of becoming a normal eater again, because you were at some point. It's just a matter of rekindling that aspect of yourself. So let's do this. The first place we want to go into is what to expect when you stop dieting. You're going to feel lost. And that's totally normal because most of us women in Western society have been raised into diet culture. From the moment we could comprehend food, weight, understand what our female caregiver in our life were focused on, we watched, listened, we were indoctrinated into diet culture. We were programmed to see our body as this tool to gain worth into the world. We were socialized to believe that as a woman, we were our physical body. Therefore, to be worthy, we needed to control, manipulate our body into the ideal body type of the time, which is, since the 1920s, is a thin body. So you don't even know it happened to you. It was done at a very young age. Your female caregiver didn't even know she was doing that to you. That's what we call intergenerational dieting, right? Dieting passed on from generation to generation to generation, and we don't even know it's happening. This is a parallel to what we're living in this time. So we're in June 2020, and we are awakening to white privilege. As white people having privilege of not being victim of a racist society into which we live in. So dieting is the same thing. As women, we don't even know it was happening to us. And for many of us, we spent 20, 30 years not even knowing there was another way of living. And that's often the reaction I get from the new people in our community when I say, you don't have to diet. They're like, huh? I mean, and I repeat, you don't have to diet. It's optional. And often the response from the new community member are silence. Like it just doesn't connect in their brain because they don't even know that's an option. So here I am telling you it's an option. And when you stop dieting, you feel lost because you're like, well, I spent my whole life doing this. Now what? Right? So you're going to feel lost. It's totally normal. You're going to get bored. Because the part of what attracts us to dieting is that shiny new object phenomenon, right? And that's why over the last 30 years, we've had one fad diet after the other, right? The paleo diet, the keto diet, the carnivore diet, and God only knows what's going to come next, right? So that shiny new thing's not going to be there because in the world of no diet, there's no shiny new toy. Like we don't promote ways of eating. So people get bored. It's too easy. It's too simple. It's not complicated. So what should I do with food? Right? So you're lost, you're bored, and that leads within typically a few weeks to frustration, right? Because it's too simple. Like, where's the rule? Where's the complication? I don't get it. And then your brain goes, well, it's too simple. You're probably doing this wrong. You should be doing more. I mean, you spent your whole life having these complicated rules around food, and now there's no rule. Where's the rules, right? You're craving rules. And then we as leader, as teacher, we keep saying there's no rule. Tap into your eating cues. And we'll get to that in just a minute. Tap within your innate normal eater to know what to eat. You're like, well, where's the rules, right? So comes a point where there's frustration. And this is where you will, again, guarantee you, want to go back on another diet. Especially if you're doing this journey of quitting dieting on your own. You in your head, an unmanaged brain, right? A head, a mind that's been dieting for years and is going crazy. That's what I call an unmanaged brain. You and your unmanaged brain will want to go back on another diet because you will want to go back to what's comfortable, right? So when you quit dieting, things are going to get really uncomfortable and you're going to seek comfort. You're going to seek more rules, the new shiny toy, the promised land, right? You will hear the message back again from dieting that says, lose 10 pounds and your life will be all perfect, right? And your brain is accustomed to that message for 20 years. It's going to want to go back there, and you will likely go back. Especially if you're alone, right? And you're doing this on your own, your brain will win. Your brain is the most powerful organ in your body. It will drive you back to promised land of dieting. You will do it. It's not going to work. And then you'll come back. You may do that a few times. But we're always going to be here welcoming you back with our hands over because we've been there. We know that that's part of the process of undieting, to stop dieting. The last thing that's going to happen for you is a need to practice. A need to practice being uncomfortable overall in life, including with dieting and with food and with your body, like learning this new land of not dieting. And you're going to need to practice this and not practice it in the way that you're used to with a guru and an expert telling you what to do, but instead with being a relationship with yourself. And you're going to have to practice being with yourself. And again, that's going to be uncomfortable because you've never done that, right? For most of us, we've been socialized to diet culture from the age of 9 or 10 years old, and we've never lived our adult life any other way. So learning to not diet is going to be a practice that's going to be uncomfortable. As crazy as this may sound, dieting right now for you who are just quitting dieting is what is safe and comfortable for you. Dieting is safe for you. To your nervous system, controlling food, self-abuse in your head is safety. I know it makes no sense, but that's what's happening within yourself. So your body, your brain will want to go back to safety of dieting, and you'll have to train yourself to welcome discomfort. And that's a practice, right? To welcome discomfort. And as we dig more into not dieting and learning what I'm about to share right now, intuitive eating, the biggest learning piece is the ability to cope with discomfort without using food. That's one big piece that we have to learn in the intuitive eating journey. So that's what to expect. The other piece that I want to talk about here now in the kind of the section of what to expect is the pendulum swing. So as you quit dieting, you may be introduced to my work or some of my colleagues' work as intuitive eating way of life, right? You're like, intuitive what? Intuitive eating. Intuitive eating is a self-care eating framework that allows you to be the expert at your own body, that shift the narrative from seeking a diet guru to tell you what to eat, to turn back within yourself and follow your innate natural eating cue, hunger, fullness, and satisfaction to know what to eat. So that's the big picture of intuitive eating, is the innate way that humans have to eat. So the analogy I always use for that is a baby. So many of you have had a baby or have even took care of a baby at some point in your life, and you fed a baby bottle, or for the case, mom, the breasts. So when your baby is born, how does she or he knows when to eat, what to eat, how much to eat? The baby follows their eating cues. They cry when they're hungry, and until you bring food, they will continue to cry. And then they will latch off the bottle or the breast when they're full. And don't try to push a baby back on the breast or the bottle when they're done. Done is done, right? And as they grow older and their capacity increase, they then bring in the third eating cue, which is satisfaction. They eat food that makes them feel satisfied. We all have that. Every single human being is born with eating cues, hunger, fullness, and satisfaction. And we eat according to these up to the moment when we're first introduced to dieting. Now, that introduction is done at a different age, and it's done differently based on your caregiver, your parents' own relationship to food, right? And so through our parents and our caregiver, we alter our relationship to our ability to feed ourselves. Now, the people around you that are, quote, normal eater have stayed connected to their eating cue, right? To their hunger, fullness, and satisfaction. And that's how they eat, quote, normally. They're not attached to food beyond what food is. For those of us who've dieted, that dieting process takes us away from our eating cue, because that's what dieting does, right? Dieting says you're broken. You don't know how to eat. That's why you're, quote, big, fat, obese, whatever the term you connect with at this point in your journey. And we need to tell you what to eat. We need to tell you when to eat. We need to tell you how much to eat. That's the principle of a diet, telling you what to eat, when to eat, and how much to eat. And that, with time, erodes your capacity to connect with your eating cues. Now, here's the good news. They're still there. They're within you. It's like a pilot light of a fire, right? A barbecue, a fireplace. You know that little gas pilot light in the back that never goes off? Maybe very, very weak, but it's there. Never goes away. The same thing for your eating cue. What has happened is you've turned down the volume of your eating cue to 0.5, and then you've increased the volume of dieting. That's what you've done when you dieted. What we need to do now, we need to take the volume down to 0 to dieting, diet gurus, rules, and all of that, and increase the volume of your innate ability to feed yourself, your eating cue back up to the maximum, 10 out of 10, whatever the scale on your dial is. We need to increase it. And that's the process of unlearning dieting, right? Tuning down the dial and moving up the other dial of your innate ability to feed yourself. Now, when you go through this process, this is when the pendulum will swing. Okay, so literally, again, I'm a teacher at heart. Imagine a pendulum, okay? So the pendulum swing, right? Left, right, back and forth, left, right, left, right. That's what your eating will do as you turn down the dial of dieting and you move up the dial of your eating cue, which means it's going to look like this. You're going to eat every forbidden food that your diet told you not to eat in large quantity and very often, and you're going to crave it because your brain will say, really, you're giving us permission to eat this permanently? Let's test you. And then you're going to want to eat, in my case, it was chips, right? Eat all the chips in the world because you've been restricting chips for 10, 20, 30 years, however long you've been dieting. And your brain will test you. Do you really give yourself permission to eat this food? And the pendulum will swing. And it may be with the forbidden food. It may be with eating when you're hungry, right? Because what we see often, women have undernourished themselves for a very long period of time. When we remove the dieting, they'll eat a lot of food because their body has been deprived of calories for so long, of fuel for so long, that it's going to want to make up what has been deprived. And that's what we call the swinging. So one day you'll be in alignment with your eating cue. The next day you won't. And then the pendulum will swing like this. And if you've observed a pendulum, it's going to the momentum will slowly go lower, right? And the momentum will start stabilizing in the middle. And that's what we call normal eating, mindful eating, intuitive eating. Your eating habits will go through the same phenomenon. It will be very aggressive at first. And if you let it be, it's going to come back to the other side and then swing, slowly stabilizing in the middle. Your job, as you let the pendulum swing, is to investigate the damage caused by dieting, because there is damage. Now, this is where you're going to have to step up and take responsibility for yourself. And that's, again, a major shift when you stop dieting, which is to become your own expert at your body, right? That's, if we look at the foundation or the pillar of what we do here in helping women unlearn dieting, is to get them to reconnect to their innate power, because that's what dieting does. It very efficiently robs you from your own power. And that's what you do. When you hand over your intake of food to this diet guru, you're basically saying, take over my life, because I'm not good enough. I'm not worthy of knowing what to eat. What do you mean? I'm broken. Take over. As strong, powerful women, can you imagine? Like, would you do that in any other area of your life? Would you do that with your family? Would you do that with your job? Would you hand over complete power of certain area of your life to someone else? You wouldn't. Why do you do it with food? Just sit on that. But that's part of the process. The part of process is taking radical self-responsibility and investigate the damage caused by dieting, right? By handing over this power, what damage did it cost you? What damage happened? And it damaged your relationship to food. We know that. We know that it damaged your relationship to your body image. We know that. We know that it damaged your mindset and your ability to have self-confidence and self-esteem, right? We need to repair those 3 areas. We need to unlearn what dieting has taught us, that we don't know what to eat, that we look terrible, and that we're not confident. I'm summarizing at high level, but you get what I'm saying? Like, we need to repair that back. And that's what the process of learning intuitive eating is, right? That's what the process of healing your body image is. That's what the process of changing your mindset is, right? In my world, this is wrapped up in one big bundle. It's called going beyond the food, right? So if you're new here, if you're listening to this for the first time, this repair, this unlearning, that's the only thing we do here, right? That you listen to the podcast or that you join our program and join our community, that's our only focus. I'm an expert at doing this because I've done it for myself and I've helped since then thousands of women of doing it. So we know exactly what you need to do to repair the damage caused by dieting. And that's what we call learning intuitive eating. We start with food, right? And I want to invite you, if you've just stopped dieting, to start healing your relationship to food first. And then once that is in place, we can then expand to mindset, we can then expand to body image and so forth. Think of this process of unlearning as a journey, right? You've dieted for 10, 20, 30 years. Can you give yourself, 6 months, 12 months to repair 30 years of damage, 20 years of damage? Do you think that's a fair trade? That's what the process of unlearning, dieting, and learning to trust yourself when it comes to food and body image is. And that's the journey of becoming a normal eater. And that's to answer your question. So now I stopped dieting. Now what? Well, welcome to the journey of becoming a normal eater. That's, as an expert in this field, where I would recommend you start. Now, the 4 area of your relationship to food that dieting caused the most damage are the following 4 areas: permission to eat, why you eat, the trust you have towards your body, and the respect you have for your body. I call that the kind of the 4 corners of unlearning dieting and relearning to be a normal eater. I said earlier that that's what we do here, right? That's what we help women with. So we do have specialized tools to help you with that. So let me give you one right off the bat here that I would like to share with all of you. And if you're a long-time listener to the podcast, you perhaps still want to use this tool. And it's the evaluation, the Intuitive Eating Assessment Scale. It's a professionally science-based design tool to help evaluate your relationship to food in those 4 elements. Because this is a field of expertise. I know if you're new, you're like, there's people who are expert at this. There's science on this. Yes, sister, there is, right? There's a whole world that you're not privy to. And the expert and the scientist and the researcher in that field has created a assessment tool that we use as professional to assess our patient, client, and in my case, student. And I'm going to share this evaluation with you today. Yay! So if you go to stephaniedodier.com/test, TEST, you will be able to download this evaluation of your relationship to food. It's 23 questions, yes and no question you need to answer. And then at the end, there's a very simple scoring methodology that will show you which area of your relationship to food you struggle the most with, one of the 4 elements. Therefore, which one you should start healing, right? You should start, quote, addressing, treating, making better, focusing on, whatever the term you want to say. So you can go and download this quiz, or you can go to the show notes. If you're listening from an app right now, scroll to the show note and there should be an hyperlink there. You can click, you give me an email, and I send this 2-page PDF to you. That's the same one I use with all of my client, all of my student, and even my self-study program are having to evaluate their own relationship to food. And once you've figured out which of those 4 areas you need to focus on, then you need to go and find tools to help you, right? So here we go. We have a podcast here, right, with 244 episodes, a lot of free stuff here, right? So if you go back to episode 199 and move up, there's a lot of me teaching stuff, totally free. There's also the book of my mentor called Intuitive Eating by Evelyn Triboli and Ellis Roche. That's who I learned from. You can go and get that. And there's also programs that I offer that can help you. We have a program currently called Intuitive Eating Project, which is a short 5-week program to teach you how to unlearn dieting and learn to eat normally intuitive eating way, right? So but Evelyn and Elise have developed a 10-step process to repair the relationship to food. So that's what we teach in this intuitive eating project is the 10-step you must take to have this normal eating relationship to food and repair the damage of dieting. If you're listening live, by the way, June the 15th, we are opening registration for that program in a live format. So typically this program is self-study. You receive the video, you receive the workbook, and then you learn at your own pace on your own. But a few times a year, I run this program live, and this summer is one of those times. So we're going to start together on June the 28th. I'm going to take this 5-week journey as a group, virtually, online, and learning, and you'll be able to interact directly with me in our support group, and we'll also have live coaching session, which we typically don't. So there's all kinds of bonus if you join us in this live formats. If you want to take the journey of becoming an intuitive eater and ditching dieting, we start at the end of June. So June 15 is when we open for registration, and then we close registration and we start as a group. So I would love to have you in this group if it's live. If you're listening to this podcast later on, right? God only knows when. Still follow the link in the show note, and then you'll be able to click and see if the program is accessible right now, or we're running another program that will help you. Any program that we run here can help you because that's all we do. Like, we're hyper focused on helping women transition from dieting to, quote, normal eating and healing their relationship to body. So no matter where you land in our program, it's going to help you, right? And we're always there to answer questions if it's the right fit or not for you. Either me and my assistant can answer all of your questions, but guarantee it's going to help you in some way, whatever program you take. So this is what we do when we stop dieting. I hope this helped you, but I want to reinforce taking the tests. If you just stopped dieting and you haven't yet evaluated the damage caused by dieting, that is where you need to begin, because you have no idea what you're shooting for, right? You've been so disconnected from your own power, your own ability, and knowing what normal eating is, that you kind of need a vision of where you're going. And this test will give you this vision. We'll say, this is normal, this is not normal. So I get that perhaps today, this is not normal for you, but this is where you're going, right? It'll give you a vision of what you should be aiming for. I hope this episode helped you. And if it did, if you're new to the podcast world, a review of the podcast is kind of the the way to pay the host for all the work we do in providing you this free content. So please go and leave us a review. You can scroll on your app right now and leave the review right there. It helps us rank this podcast higher and get this message to more women. And we know that ditching diet culture, stopping dieting is a grassroots movement. So we need all of you to help us push this podcast higher. And it worked very well with your review. And I want to continue to push this podcast higher with more review from you. Next episode is going to be an interview with an expert in the world of intergenerational trauma and how this intergenerational trauma plays in diet culture and in racism. So hope to see you there. I love you, sister. Look forward to hang out with you on the next episode.